What is up, my fellow parents? Hey, welcome back for part two. I enjoyed our episode last week so much, Jordan. We had so much good content. We went very deep. We invited you to look back into your past. We invited you to look at your present, to think about how our childhood, how it's all connected. And some of the things that I was really the most looking forward to, everybody, we didn't have time to get to. So instead of rushing it, we're a week later here. We want to really go deep with you. Partly what we want to do today is Jordan and I want to tell you some personal, private stories. Included in that is I've been writing a parenting book for, I think, about 4 years. It's like one of the biggest challenges of my life. And I want to read you a section from that book. I want to read it to inspire you, to encourage you, to share kind of my personal life with you. And no one has ever read it. It's not even fully edited yet. And so I'm just really honored to be in your life and to share this with you. Because Jordan, this is some private stuff we're talking about, very deep. We're talking about like the past and pain points and how it's all connected.
I think the last episode was so good. For anybody who hasn't listened, I say go listen. I'm going to try to sum it up real quick, but more importantly, this section of the book, I'm so pumped for whenever you release this thing.
Thanks,
I'm excited
man.
to get a sneak peek about it. Just kind of.
Thanks.
Do you start it by saying like "Once upon a time"?
Once upon a time.
Do you have
on
any
the beach in
rhymes
San Diego?
Right.
I do have rhymes. I've got haikus.
You do have rhymes.
And I do. No, I actually have some. Like it's mostly like the book is hopefully going to be called "Schools Won't Teach This: A Parent's How-To Guide to Raise Wise, Emotionally Intelligent Adults." But I thought it would be helpful to share some parts of my childhood and
100%.
and not to make it about me, but to really like for the reader to kind of get to know who the author is. So I want to share a little section.
Good.
Yeah, I'm excited.
And so, like, just to kind of sum up last week's episode, ladies and gentlemen, it was so good because Sean had us really thinking about some of the things that maybe we went through as kids that maybe ultimately impacts our parenting now, right?
Yeah.
Give you some examples. When you were a kid, was it hard for you and your family to have an abundance of stuff, whether it be an abundance of toys on Christmas Eve or an abundance of food? You get to choose wherever you want. Did you have maybe more strict, rules on certain things around your house? Because we really did, and what you had us do, Sean, is think back. Like, what was our childhood like? Like, I actually had, some childhood hunger, let's say. And so now my kids are like, I don't want this. It doesn't taste good. And you're like, you eat your dang food, boy.
Right.
Eat that. You finish that plate because you're upset because they don't know what they don't know. You didn't have that as a kid. And now you worked your butt off to get this for them.
Yeah.
And they're just complaining. Or like, really, this is the toy Santa gave me on Christmas Eve. Right. What's the next one? You're like, what's the next one? You're lucky you got one. I'm going to give you coal next time, right? And so that triggers us. And ultimately what you said, and you kind of had us reflecting on maybe like some could call it, like PTSD. Maybe we have some kind of like trauma that happened that's actually impacting us now.
Yeah.
And you actually went in to showcase different studies that highlights this. And at first I wasn't really on board. I was like, come on, Sean, it's like, pull up your pants. Let's go.
I love you. I love that's like, how our dynamic is. You play that devil's advocate. You challenge me. Please continue.
Like, stop being whiny parents. And then once you got into the stats, I'm like, oh yeah, maybe he has a point. And then I was like, oh, maybe I do have this thing that happened when I was a kid that's impacting me, which
I even asked you, I actually asked you before we even did last episode, hey, do you got anything in your childhood that maybe might come up for you? It's connected. And you said, I don't know. I got to think about it. And so Jordan,
I have nothing.
You did it. You got a story. You got a story. And hopefully you all did that. Hopefully you had a week to think about it and come back and tell stories. And then, like I said, once this episode is aired, I'm going to post this a little something on my Instagram and my Facebook and my TikTok, and use the comments to tell us about this episode or what came up for you from this episode.
Right,
so I'm pumped for that.
It's different for all of us.
Yeah. You know what's I actually commented on this, Jordan. One thing that is interesting about like being on a podcast is, for me, it kind of feels actually isolating and lonely. So for example, even though like right now, thankfully our podcast is rated, I think, number 11 in the world. Like, we don't ever hear from people. It's like, we're just like sitting here in our own rooms talking, and like, we don't even know if anyone likes us, what they feel about it. No one ever like gives us we have no live audience, in fact. fun fact, everybody, Jordan was at Atlanta Airport 24 hours ago with a headphones on and a mic in his hand at the freaking terminal. And we tried to record this episode there. And we had technical issues and we couldn't record it. That's how committed this man is to this podcast. So thank you,
Well,
Jordan,
I'm
for your
learning
commitment.
just like everybody else, and I mean, I think this is great that we have this time to chat about it, because I think there's a lot of people, even though they're not reaching out, are learning so much.
Yeah.
And in last week's podcast, Sean, you gave us 3 ways. You called them Sean's 3 ways.
Oh,
and
yeah.
way number 1 is basically ultimately saying we copy what we had, whether it's better, whether it's worse. We have these what's called generational cycles. And he really went into detail about that, which, could it be about, alcohol, rules in the house, what it was like for you? Those are the rules in my house now. Spanking. What was it like for you? What is it like now? Number 2 was we do the exact opposite of the extremes that we were raised with, right?
So common.
We maybe chose a different extreme, but it was still an extreme. Maybe it was the same topic, and we're going the completely other way because that thing in our childhood haunted us to this day.
Yeah.
And then number 3, you said we feel like the scary past is happening in the present.
So common.
Right? Maybe something happened in the past, and so we're scared. Maybe one time we were at a convenience store. Our parents left us on accident. We got lost. We were in the woods, went on a trail, got lost.
These little
and now
things.
we don't want our kids to be 5 feet away from us.
Oh, so everyone get out to bulldozer and let's dig and let's go deep. Even though bulldozers don't go deep. So I have to be a crane or like a digger. But yeah, whatever. Let's go deep. Yeah, man. So can I pick up where we left off last time?
Yes.
So here's so over the summer, Jordan, I play a lot of basketball, about 2 to 4 days a week. I actually played this morning at 5 a.m. and I had a bad injury on the basketball court. I tweaked my back, and then immediately I got home and I started had a serious sciatic pain all the way down the left side, and I was in serious pain for quite a while. Unfortunately, after that, I developed plantar fasciitis, which I had for 4 months. So I talked to my buddy Patrick Mummy, who's in charge of this great rehab kind of process called Symmetry, and I said, "Hey, man." He's a really good basketball player. What can I do to fix my sciatica and my plantars? He said, you know what it is? It's in your hips. He's like, he played D1 baseball. He's like, plantar fasciitis is normally connected to the hips. I was like, what? What are you talking about? That kind of makes sense though, how it's all connected. And so that's how our body is kind of connected.
Just so everybody doesn't know, that's in your feet, right?
This is it's like there's on the bottom of this foot. There's this like kind of like a muscle called a plantar tendon, fascia, and it can get all messed up. But this is actually how parenting is, right? This is how the body works. If you have some type of external symptom, you might have to look deeper than what's really going on, whether it be this symptom or this symptom. So what I want to do right now is I want to invite you to go deep. I'm going to tell you some things, Jordan, that normal parents say on a regular basis.
Okay.
But I want to invite you to realize that this could be just a normal way you think. There could be nothing about this. But I'm also want to invite you to think about this, how this could actually be a symptom of a deeper issue, of how something happened to you when you were younger. And because you're saying this sentence, because you're thinking this, it might be issue like that you've got to put some attention into. Are you ready? I got about 7 of them. Are you ready?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. First one, and I'll let you do other.
I got a question too at the end of all these. Go for it.
Okay. Well, no, I want to hear what you say if you have any questions or thoughts about this. First one. So essentially what this little section of the podcast is what I called is these might be trauma responses. Right? Just like foot pain, it might just be foot pain, but it might be something deeper connected to your hips. So I'm doing all this good work on my hips. So let's do the work. Right. It's hard for me to say no to my kids.
Yeah, we all feel that, right? Mm-hmm. But does that mean it's something from our childhood, or does it just mean
that's what I'm saying? We're not answering those questions. I'm not answering those questions. I'm just asking them. I'm just asking them, right? And this is why for you to I think there's people shaking their head up and down right now, not left and right, listening. They're like,
like my parents did nothing for me, so I will do everything to have my child. Yeah. I was never able to get pregnant, so I'm going to give them everything I could possibly give them.
I mean, Jordan, I got shivers all through my whole body right now, all the way through my hips, buddy. What you just said, because that is such a sensitive topic, right?
It is.
I was not able to get pregnant, or you know what? One of my new best friends, His name is Charlie Camarillo. Um, they they lost a baby named Mason, I think a couple hours after birth, few hours, maybe a day or two.
Oh, that is so hard.
And then they had
It's
another
always
baby
hard, but
afterwards. He's a 2-year-old. I've actually alluded to him quite a bit because he's in my house quite a bit. He's so cute, and they are very. They will tell you honestly, they were just very traumatized by losing Mason, and they're very afraid of like anything bad happening to their youngest child.
sure.
And you can't blame them.
Right.
And so yeah, because I mean,
When you get given a gift like that and you appreciate that gift,
Mhm.
I wouldn't want to say no if that gift asked for extra cheese, extra candy. Sure. Go
Yeah,
for it. Can I get more
yeah,
tech? Yeah. Play your
yeah.
game. Like, I love you. I'm so glad you're here. Thank
Yeah,
you.
you're right,
Yeah.
right. All right, here, this one, this one really gets under my skin, but it's super common, especially for moms. Ready? You're only as happy as your least happy child.
Ooh.
Mm-hmm.
As a parent, we are only as happy as our least
Have
happy
you heard that
child.
saying
Right.
before?
Because we
Mm-hmm.
sometimes feel what they feel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but that
And
could
if
be a
they're
sign
bumming,
there's
I'm
something
bumming.
deeper. Next sign is, you know what? This family doesn't care about me. That's a common thing people think, my dog.
Now, this is a common thing people think from a kid's perspective or
No,
a
this
parent's
is what parents
perspective.
think. That's how parents think. No one cares about me.
My family, or let's say my spouse,
Could
doesn't
be my
care
spouse.
about me.
Yeah.
Really?
My spouse doesn't care about me, and also my family doesn't care about me. That could be a trauma response.
Oh yeah,
Could
that'd be
be.
hard.
It might be
It
true,
could be.
but it may not be true.
Sure.
It might be a trauma response. How about this one? I'm used to this. I have to do it all on my own.
Oh right.
You
Right.
feeling that?
I wasn't given anything growing up. I'm used to just not having anything. I'm
Mm-hmm.
used to doing everything for myself.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I'll never be happy.
I'll never be happy. No, come on. You can't think that.
It could be a trauma response, right? Why
I'll
would
never
somebody
be
think that?
happy.
Why would somebody think that? What happened in their childhood that led them to think that, right?
Well, sometimes laughing, I'm just going to say historically and from a masculine perspective, a guy's perspective,
Mm-hmm.
smiling, being happy shows a sign of weakness. So you
Mm-hmm.
shape up.
Yeah,
Don't
man.
smile. Don't be
Yeah.
happy.
Yeah,
Right.
dude. How about this one? This one's a little, very subtle, but I can see this could be a trauma response. Kids will be kids. There's nothing I can do.
I love that one. I love that. Boys will be boys. Kids are gonna be kids. They're just gonna eat all the sugar and play the
But
games.
think
It's
about
fine.
that, right? But just go a little deeper. Could you see that for some people? This could be like, what the hell? Like, why are you thinking that? What happened to you
Well,
that made
it's
you
an
think
easy
that way?
excuse. It's an easy out.
Yeah. Okay, here I got two more. I really like this one. I can't let them see me like this.
Yeah, we've talked a lot about that one on this podcast. Actually,
Really?
how like
Really? We
yeah,
have?
like let's say, well, shoot, it's been happening in my life. Like when my mother-in-law, my wife's mom, passed away. I mean,
Mhm.
she was very strong into like not showing the kids her sadness.
Yeah.
Or like showing her mom
Right.
that she wasn't sad during the
Wow.
cancer treatments, and like to the fact where her mom had to ask her own daughter, like,
Yeah.
are you sad I'm going through this? And my wife is like, of course, but she was so strong and not showing
Right.
sadness towards her
Why?
mother.
Right.
Now it makes her mother think that like she doesn't even
Yeah.
care, right?
Right.
And it's the opposite. It's the exact opposite.
I got a very lovely but disagreeable comment on one of my videos today. The person said, "Hey, love your video, Sean. Big fan. I watch them all, but I don't agree with this post." It was a post that I just
Okay.
posted today. And it was
Okay.
about, hey, instead of yelling at your kids, here's 3 responses you
Say
could
these
say to
3
your
things,
kids.
right.
And it was like very humbling. Like the first one of the ones was like, "Hey, I'm kind of feeling grumpy today. Don't take it personally." And the person was like, "No, like we cannot share our feelings with our kids. We cannot make our kids responsible for our feelings. They're kids." And we've talked a lot about that. And I've even shown proven research even an episode that just came out today, believe it or not, is about why you must share your feelings with your kids. And it makes you wonder, I'm just poking everybody here, just bringing up what that could be a trauma response. Like you refuse to share your feelings with your kids, which is actually totally impossible because your kids will see your anger. They will see you pissed off. What do you get? They're going to see you happy.
Right.
They're going to
see you sad.
They're like, what are you, why are you, where did that even come from? You know what I mean?
Right. That's good. A lot of us can understand that one.
Okay. Yeah.
What else you got? You got two more, one more?
I think that's I got one more, and then I'll share another one later on in this episode that's very personal to me. I can never change.
Ooh, that's real deep, right?
That's deep. That's bad.
That's something that no one, just so this, no one should feel this way. I mean, I know we do from time to time, but you can change.
You can.
Right?
So it makes you wonder what happened to you in your past that feels like you
Right.
can't grow, you can't change, like you're stuck in your ways. You can't be a better parent, a better spouse, more loving, more wise.
Right.
You can't lose weight. You can't keep your resolutions. You can't really achieve the type of spiritual relationship you want, or become a reader, or become whatever you want to become.
Sure.
Who told you
Musician,
that?
anything.
Right? A musician, anything. So Jordan, all right, man, you've got 2 weeks now to answer this question. You had a whole week from the last week's episode. You're not in an airport.
I get into my story.
You're not in an airport right now. And you're not in an airport. You've had a week. So before you get into you know what I'm about to say. It sounds like you want me to pause. You want to say something before I say it. So go for it.
Well, I want to get into my story, but first I wanted to go deeper on these topics real quick and ask one question, and it might be silly, but it had me thinking about it. All these questions you have us thinking about have to do with us thinking about when we were kids or what happened to us. Yeah. Is there any kind of spiritual thing out there that says that we are actually impacted by maybe past trauma from our parents, maybe when we were in the womb or even prior to that? Have you ever thought about that? Or is that even a thing? Do you understand what I'm trying to say? Is could my grandparents' trauma actually be generational and impacting me today?
Oh, okay. Wow. Well, you'd have to ask your local priest or your pastor. So I don't think you're talking about prenatal alcohol syndrome. You're talking about this spiritual concept of generational sin or the sins of the father.
Stuff like that. That's pretty deep.
Oh, dude, that's
it just had me.
I don't believe in that at all. I do not believe in that
because we could
because really what you're talking about is a curse, right?
Right.
And you have to ask 10 people. Do you believe in ghosts? Do you believe in curses? Do you believe in haunted houses? Now, as a Christian person, Jordan, I believe in good and evil and God and the devil and evil spirits and holy spirits. I believe in all that basic, normal Christian stuff. But what you're talking about is something that I don't really see in the Bible. And you're talking about generational curses, but there's a lot of people, and I don't agree with them. I don't think it's healthy to think this way at all, that I think do believe in that. I mean, do you? That's a juicy question. Well, do you believe in generational curses? I mean, that's pretty outlandish. Yeah. But people talk about it like it's a normal thing.
Sure.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons why I brought it up is because I'm wondering if someone is using that as an excuse, because I am in agreement with you. I think we have more ability to create our own path rather than be stuck in the haunts of our prior generation.
Yeah, buddy.
But some people still have that on their shoulders and it weighs them down for whatever reason. So I wanted to ask that briefly.
Yeah, that's a tough
before
question.
I get into my story.
That was juicy.
But my story goes back.
Okay, let's go.
My story goes back to what really made me think about it is a couple of things. And I had a great childhood. I'll just say it right now. Even though my parents got divorced and they lived separate, I really enjoyed growing up with my brother and sister. And, I had a lot of responsibilities put on me. So I think that's what keeps me more of a driven person, because I had to make sure to raise these other kids, basically. But, being a married man now, having kids myself, I look back after our last podcast and was like, maybe there was something there when my parents did get divorced that made me really not necessarily mean my wedding vows. I think all of us mean our wedding vows in that moment, but really stick to it through the thick and thin.
So
right?
in
And
a
there
good
was,
way, you're saying your
yeah, in a
divorce
good
led
way.
you to be more committed than maybe other people are to really keeping your vows. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, because you look at society, it's like, well, they say, and we've gone through those stats before, but
So
the
yeah,
saying is like
buddy.
50% of marriages, you get a divorce and
Yeah,
blah, blah, blah. And
yeah.
so you just think like, oh, okay, well, that's normal. Let me just get divorced and start over.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I think seeing the pain
Mm-hmm.
of that and what that caused made
Mm.
me be like, I never want that. In a
Yeah,
similar situation, I
yeah.
was never into drugs and alcohol really as a young child. I
Mm.
think you really helped me with that
Okay.
because there's influences out there everywhere,
Yeah.
but I just never really was in that. And I
Mm-hmm.
remember a moment when um I was in my backyard with some family. They were older than me, they were adults, and they were smoking
Okay.
cigarettes. And I was like, "Why do you do that?" And they're like, "Well, and they were talking about it, and they asked me like, "Do you want to try it?" And I was old enough at this point to like give it a
Yeah.
try.
Right.
And I was like, "No, I don't
Yeah.
even want to touch that."
Yeah.
And then I remember
Yeah.
after last week's podcast, going back to my childhood, there was a moment when we were in an apartment. It was late at night. I woke up. My brother and sister were in bed. Couldn't find my mom. She wasn't in the house.
Mm.
I go out
Mm.
back and she's sitting there crying,
Mm.
smoking a cigarette she found on the ground. Right.
Mm.
And I remember this as a moment, like looking at that in pure shock, like, why is my mom smoking and she's crying? And like this pure negative emotion is falling over my body. And then you fast forward 13, 14 years, and then
Wow.
someone says, "Hey, do you want a cigarette?" And I'm like, "No, I want nothing to do with
Wow.
that," probably because of that trauma in my mind. And that
Wow.
then links to like no drugs, didn't want to do pot, like was
Yeah.
very respectful of alcohol and all of that.
Dang.
Not crazy. That's crazy how, because of what you said last
Yeah.
week, it made me think of all that I had not thought about in, I don't know,
Mm.
several
Yeah.
decades.
I got a couple questions for you. So you gotta, I don't want to interrupt your story. Please go on, or you want me to?
No, I'm done. Those are the two
Mm.
main ones
Mm-hmm.
that I could think about that I was like,
Okay.
huh, I wonder if that is. And then I got to go deeper
Yeah.
now,
Let's do
and
it.
I got to think,
Do it.
okay, so what happens now that I'm a parent if I find my
That was
kids
one of my questions.
cigarettes?
That was one of my
Okay.
questions.
Or
Yeah.
hey, I found pot under,
Yeah.
weed under their bed, and now it's
Right.
getting
Yeah,
more and more
because you
legal.
were
Is that okay?
so
Or
against it growing
do I
up.
still have this
Yeah.
right?
You.
Or do I still have this bias against it?
Right.
Um,
Wow.
it's just I don't know. We'll have to come back to that if we're still
Yeah.
doing this
Right. Yeah.
podcast and I get to that
Oh, hopefully
moment.
we will
And I
be.
get to that moment.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Here's.
Because I don't know how I think I would be disappointed.
Mm-hmm.
I would be sad.
Mm-hmm.
I would, feel betrayed.
Mm-hmm.
But it's my job now to make sure, that hopefully my kids, and society's different when it comes to like smoking cigarettes. It's become such a negative thing. It used to be cool back in the day,
Yeah.
flicking the little
Yeah.
cigarette. And
Yeah.
I had a buddy over, and he smokes an old school tobacco pipe.
Ooh, that's
Like
kind of
a
classy though.
pipe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's kind of classy.
And so he was
yeah.
over hanging out. We were
Yeah.
having a couple drinks at a bonfire.
Oh, that's
And he pulled out the pipe.
Yeah.
And my daughter comes out and she goes, "Are you smoking?"
She said that.
Do you know?
She said that to
Francis,
him,
do you
to his
know
face?
what that will do to
Good
you?
for
Why
her.
are you doing
Good
that?
for
It was
her.
hilarious.
I love it.
I was like, yes.
Yes.
Good.
Oh my gosh. You know, a lot of really people don't talk like this normally, but I want to. A lot of really good things can happen from divorce. A lot of good things, and the research can be very positive towards divorce. One of the good things is like it can then produce more mindfulness and even a greater commitment to the children of divorce to be like, okay, I'm really going to slow down. I want to make sure I don't just jump into a marriage here. I don't want to, get divorced.
Right.
I don't want to do what happened when my parents did to me. But here's my juicy question is that one of my favorite sayings is you don't know what you don't know. So in your situation, we even had your dad on a previous episode. It was incredible. I learned a lot. I just loved his heart. But one thing you didn't get to experience, and I didn't get to experience this either, is you never got to watch two adults that are married, that are your parents, be committed in living on the same roof. You never saw them fight and work it out. You never saw them argue and work it out. You never saw them, talk as you get into the older teen or even, years about, hey, this is what marriage is. This is what it's about. You never saw them celebrate anniversary after anniversary or go on date nights. So then you could make the argument, then you, as a young man who getting married, I was there, I officiated the wedding, heck yeah. And you never got to, you didn't know, and you probably didn't read a bunch of marriage books before you got married. So then you could make the argument that you're actually at a disadvantage. And me too. Children are divorced at a disadvantage, when they go into marriage, because they don't have any role models. So did
Right.
you ever get to, did you ever get to a point
Yes,
where
you
you're,
did make us read a marriage book. You made us do homework
oh,
beforehand. I was like, "Are you kidding me, Sean?"
yes.
You're like, "Yeah, you guys need to fill out these paperwork."
They-
And I'm like, "What paperwork? No, I just want to get married." No, no, no. You guys need to talk to each other first. And it was so good that you
Oh,
did that because
wonderful.
I wouldn't have known a lot of the stuff.
That's so cool. Yeah. So did you ever get to a point in your marriage where like, oh my gosh, I can't believe my parents didn't taught me this, or like I'm
Yes.
angry at them, or this is a lot harder than I thought, or like I can see why people
There's
get
one
divorced, or
moment.
like you just because, like, for example, let's say you grew up in a house of obesity, just bringing that up, and everyone is extremely
Sure.
morbidly obese. And then you could
Sure.
say, I'm never going to do that. And maybe you'll never then, you'll really manage your weight or your diet, and your genes help you to not live in obesity. But that doesn't mean you know how to do it. You don't, just because you want to
Right.
not live obese doesn't mean you know how to not be obese. So like, you don't know what you don't know. So what comes up for you when I said that long-winded question?
What comes up for me is, what is the number one reason people get divorced? Do you know?
Ooh.
I think it's the number one reason. I'm not going to look it up right now.
I'd
I'm
only
going
be
to assume
guessing.
this
I
is it.
should know this.
I think it's like roughly half of the reason there are divorces are finances.
Mm-hmm.
Finances, the struggle of money,
Okay.
right? And that's big. So like, let's be honest, school really didn't teach us much about money. Do they teach you how to like really balance your budget? Maybe they do nowadays,
Wow.
but it was
Yeah.
tough, But how about like when you have your own money and you get married and now someone else has their own money, do you still have your own money, or is it one pot? And if it's one pot, who can tap into that pot? How much money do you get? How much money did I get? And there was a moment when like we had to sit down and just talk this out because no one taught us. No one said, hey, now that you're married, Dave Ramsey talks about this a lot. It's like, you guys are now one. And the Bible talks about that. You were individual and you become one. Everything needs to become one. But the problem is we're still so used to just being and spending in our own ways that we don't understand how to share properly. And is it fair if you spend the majority of the budget and I only get this much of the budget? So like, there's a lot of conversations that had to be had about finances, and we came through it together.
Great.
But again, all kudos goes to my wife who leads those conversations. Is like, hey, we're sitting down right now, we're figuring this out because this is not working.
I got a couple questions about your wife, Danny, and about you, and I want to bring that up in about 15 minutes on this. So hang tight. So thank you, man. Thank you. Can I share my story now?
I want you to share your story, and I think a lot of us, we really appreciate when you get into specifics about you because you've got a lot of great advice, and we always want to know how does Sean come up with some of this stuff.
That's
so
nice of you.
From
All right,
book,
so here's what I'm thinking. I'm going to share a little
story.
bit from my book, and then we'll pause, let Jordan chat about it with me, and then I'm going to read the second part. Okay. So this is found on page 91, a little section of biographical issues. And I was really talking about my own parents' divorce and about this big choice that now I had to make. I already had to make a choice of who I was going to live with, my mom and my dad, full time. And so here we are.
You got that choice.
We were forced to make that choice as children. We had to be forced. Who we're going to live with full time. So here we are. I felt alone, disconnected, ashamed. I felt like a failure, like a damaged. I was a bad kid. Soon after that, I received some more challenging news. My mother was getting remarried to a man I barely knew. There was a wedding. I quickly had a new stepdad. Then more news. My stepfather got a new job in San Diego, and he and my mom were moving south, 500 miles away. Deja vu. They told my sister and I we had to choose. Come with them to San Diego or move in with my dad and stay in our schools. I was 13. I had another big decision to make. Should I stay or go? Stay with my mom and move away from my loving, present dad, away from my older sister, my friends, and all my new friends in my public school? That was rough. I chose to move. My younger sister, Megan, also chose to move. My older sister, Molly, was really thriving in her high school, and she chose to stay with my dad. My family was now separated by 500 Golden State, California miles, and that was rough. My sister Molly recently told me her feelings and perspective on these events. She was 16 and a young woman at the time, still growing and learning. developing, needing mentoring and teaching, nurturing, mothering. And her mother, her teacher, her person, moved 500 miles away from her. Her mother left her. That must have been rough. San Diego was hard for me. New city, new home, with a stranger who I barely knew. New school, no friends, no dad, no desires. That was rough. I soon decided I hated my new stepdad. He was so lame, weird, annoying. He ate so dang slowly. We were all fast eaters, and we were all chomped down our food, and we'd be halfway done with, and he'd be halfway done with his meal when we'd be done. He'd clear his throat a lot. He wore baggy shorts like I did. He was always so positive. Ugh, so annoying. At my basketball games, he would cheer so loudly. He wasn't my dad. He wasn't my friend. I didn't want a stepdad. I didn't want him around. I wanted space. I didn't even give the dude a chance. I wondered, did I make the right decision moving here? Oh, my buttons were pushed every day, everywhere. I cried myself to sleep some nights. Maybe your family was like mine. We didn't talk about feelings. We did lots of reactions, not much talking or connecting. We did lots of sweeping things under the rug to be buried forever. There were pink elephants in every room. We all just clearly ignored the issues, but they were there. There wasn't much comfort. We didn't comfort each other much. We didn't have family meetings. We didn't talk about how we were all coping with this huge, weird transition, just pink elephants and brooms everywhere. It must have been hard on them as well. I wouldn't know. I think back now and I wonder if the move was harder on my father. Having two of his children taken away from him like that, 500 miles south, a 9-hour drive. Did he fight the move? Contest it? Did he care? I wouldn't know. Maybe it wasn't hard on him. Maybe he worked 60 hours a week. Maybe he ignored the pain. Maybe he drank. Maybe he never really cared. I wouldn't know. I still don't know. So now many warm San Diego months have passed, and my father had still not come down to visit me one time. He hadn't seen my new school, my new bedroom. He missed all my football games. Maybe he'll come watch one of my basketball games. He didn't call much. The calls we did have were shallow and uneventful. Maybe he'll come in the spring. And my mother, she had high expectations for me and my behavior. No more acting out, no more back talk, no disrespect. She's a school teacher, and she didn't tolerate much disobedience or attitude. For me, I was a detached, hurting kid who was expected to respect and obey and have a good attitude. Good luck with that. And here is the story of how avoidance became my go-to reaction. It's a love story. All right, that's a little section. I'll read another section next.
Dude, first off, well done writing that. Like, very descriptive.
Thank you.
We were all there with you. We could feel your feelings.
Thank you.
That was really well done for someone who's never written a book before. So first off, good job.
Okay.
Second off, I want to remind everybody how old you were when that took place.
I think this chapter, because I maybe left that part out. Yeah, we're talking about, 7th grade. I made the move. Middle of 7th grade.
So you're in middle school. Then you got to go into high school. Tough years middle school is. Another thing that comes to mind for me is, a similar situation happened to my father, believe it or not. He had two brothers at the time, and their parents got divorced, and the brothers separated. Okay. So he has a stronger bond with one brother than another brother. Is that similar to you because you guys got separated?
I think so. For me, I just feel like my younger sister Megan and I were there, but there's just a lot of pain that happened there between us. I was a horrible big brother, hurt people. And so unfortunately, I was just so mean to her. And that's a big part of my life that I have shame and regret over, of how I treated her. And so, she's been through a lot. She went through all this, and she grew up with a horrible big brother, and so thanks for asking, man. But and it's different when you separate the family members like that. Yeah.
Right. It's hard. So now that you are older, you've got your own family.
Yeah.
do you see some of this trauma coming up often for you? I mean, we talk
Hold
about it on
that
the
question.
podcast,
Let me
but
read.
in your
Let me read
marriage,
the two.
okay.
Let me read two next sections for you. Okay, and then I'll
All right,
I'll
I'd
love to
love
answer
to.
that question. May I read one more? Actually, two more. I'll break it up into
Sure.
two. Okay,
Okay.
ready? About a year after the move, my father announced from up north that he too was now remarrying. I went to the wedding. I smiled in the photos. He had a new wife, and I had a new stepmom, who I barely knew, or her three children. That was weird, and that was rough. It had now been 12 months, and my father had still not come to visit me in San Diego. I wondered if he attended his stepkids' games. My next basketball season would start soon. Maybe he'll come. I was 14-year-old, detached and disconnected from my parents, physically, emotionally. I felt alone. I'm not bashing my parents. This is my story, and I'll tell it the way I freaking want. My two parents and my two step-parents loved me, and they did the best they could with the parenting tools that they had, which weren't many. When I think about my parents and their parents, my grandparents, I don't think my parents learned many positive EQ skills from their parents. You know, like all of us, they used the tools they had. You don't know what you don't know. Generational cycles can be hard to stop. Adulthood, romance, and parenthood messy and complicated. Looking back now, I think adult life was hard for these adults, right? I got one more section after that if I could share it.
That's good because you're actually getting deeper into why they were the way they were, which goes back to your comment. We don't know what we don't know. But what's great and what's counteractive to what the lady posted on your social media post about like we shouldn't share feelings, this is showing the exact opposite as to why it's important for us to share feelings. You had mentioned in the first excerpt that you still don't know to this day what was going through your dad's mind.
Yeah,
I mean, I'd love to know if you ever asked him. Does he say no? Maybe he tried and he wasn't allowed. I don't know. Maybe he didn't.
Yeah, he really won't go there much. And I haven't, I feel like I've tried, but he doesn't really want to go there. And I don't blame him. He made up some lame excuse once, which I'm not even going to share because I don't want to. And it didn't connect with me. It's like, what the hell? Like, why have kids in the first place if they're not going to really be in their life,
Yeah.
So
basically what I'm trying to say is because of those two, it just proves how important it is to share what you're going through.
Yeah.
And this will help the kids understand, hopefully, in the long run.
All right, now we're going to fast forward about 5 pages and pick up here. Last little section we'll leave here. It was a teen romance. Avoidance and I fell deeply in love. I stopped thinking about my dad. It was like he died. I just stopped caring. Off switch. It was too painful to care, too painful to think about him. So why do it? I just wanted to watch MTV and be with my friends. He made it easy. He didn't call. Some years he didn't even send birthday cards. He wasn't there for me. He wasn't there for my little sister, Megan. Not being there for me, whatever. I'm fine. But not being there for my little sister, I hated him for that. What kind of man abandons a little girl? F that guy. High school life moved on. I started excelling in basketball. Playing year-round. In all my San Diego basketball games, of all the baskets made, of all the accolades, of all my years playing, the man never came to one game. No one is coming. There were birthdays I didn't receive a phone call or a call. No one is coming. No one is coming. Hold that thought.
P.S. Just so everybody knows, this book is not out yet. When it does, he'll let you know because I'm interested too.
I missed a paragraph that I really wanted to share, but that's okay. So, man, that's a little bit about some childish stuff that took a lot of emotional intention to go back in time to remember how I was feeling. But that's how I was feeling, man. That's a little bit of my childhood.
So there was, where is it here? Okay. When in our last podcast, you got into Sean's 3 ways. Number 2 was we do the exact opposite of the extremes we were raised in and choose a different extreme.
Asking me. I'm on the.
So this This was
Mhm.
extreme. So are you now the person that can't say no to your kids? Are you the person that's going to show up at every game and be that annoying dad that's in there screaming at the
Right.
refs because
Right.
your
No,
dad
good
never
point. Yeah,
was,
we actually talked a couple
right?
episodes ago away about one of my
We
buddies
have.
who's like
We have.
so committed to never missing one of their kids' games. And it's like it's causing problems in our friendship.
Right.
It's like, come on, man. Like where did you know that's cool and all, but like can you hang out sometime or go on a trip one time? Yeah. No, I feel like there's just been so much healing now, so much healing from the past. And I do not believe I have brought much pain from the past into the present, but I know for a fact I have brought definite pain because we all do. We all do. It's
We all
impossible to
do.
not.
That's so
It's
true. It's
impossible.
impossible.
We have
It's
these.
so impossible.
We're
We're
not
not
robots.
robots,
Yeah,
right?
one of my therapists in the past calls it tender spots. We all have these tender spots,
Tender.
right? It's like you push here
Yeah.
and it affects you a little bit. So here, instead of me answering your next question, let me ask you a question, okay? Now, I've got in front of
Sure.
me something we've talked about a few times on this. And for you, those of you listening, you can ask yourself these two questions. Based on what you just heard from Sean's little reading, which attachment style do you think that I struggle with the most? Question 2. I'm going to read you these 4 attachment styles, really short, really little brief description on these 4 attachment styles, and ask yourself, which one do you feel like you connect with or struggle with the most? Are you ready, Jordan? Okay, first one is
Do
what's
it.
called secure attachment. Some of the characteristics of that describe healthy relationships with your primary caregiver. You shows appropriate distress when left alone. You're able to seek support in relationships, and you can regulate your own emotions. Right. Number 2,
Okay.
what experts
Okay.
call anxious or ambivalent attachment style. Of course, secure is what we all want to be. We all want to do the work to get to a secure spot. Some of the characteristics of anxious attachment style is limited parental availability. Right? Distress when left alone, craves close relationships but struggles to trust, need for reassurance from partners, feelings of anxiety or jealousy are common. Questions about that? Number 3?
Okay.
Number
Nope.
3
Keep
would be
going.
called avoidant attachment style. Abuse or
Okay.
neglect from caregiver. No preference for parental presence. Independent. Patterns of withdrawal. A tendency to minimize the feelings of others. Preference for casual relationships. That's avoidant. And the last one is what
Okay.
we call disorganized. One of the ways that here, what you're about to say, it's kind of like it's all over the place. Sometimes it's here, sometimes it's there, sometimes it's all over the place. Disorganized characteristics involved you had inconsistent parenting.
Okay, we all have that.
Intimate
That's good.
relationships feel confusing. Feelings of unworthiness. Tendency towards aggressive behavior or parenting or antisocial behaviors. Right? So when you hear my story, which one do you think that I struggle with or connect with the most?
So it's like you wanted to be secure. You didn't have that though. So you're left empty. And there was a bit of ambivalent in there because you had limited parental availability. The reality was they weren't there for you. So the reality is it's avoidant, right? Neglect from your caregiver. And that was what was happening. You were getting neglect. They wouldn't call, they wouldn't show up, they weren't there for you. But you wanted to have that secureness, but you didn't have that. So ultimately, were you all disorganized? It was all disorganized for you. You know what I mean? It's like could we take a sample of all of these? You got moved, you got pulled away from your family, it was broken up, there was no organization, you're in a new school, your parents weren't there for you, they were being avoidant. You yourself was not being a good brother to your sister, you were probably being avoidant.
Yeah, buddy.
How do you feel? You think there's one category that describes you?
It's what you said. It's avoidant. Yeah. I fell in love
that definitely
with
heavy.
the coping skill of avoidance.
Yeah, a lot of us,
especially
do, for whatever
especially
reason. What
men.
is that?
It's definitely
It's like we
You know, we
don't
don't
want to
know
share our
how. We
feelings.
don't
Just
know how to
leave me
feel.
alone.
We don't know how. And then what happens if we start getting angry or aggressive? It scares people.
Yeah,
It
we get
scares
mad, we
people.
yell.
And they tell us we can't do
Yeah.
that in relationships. So then we just avoid,
Hmm.
right? So we don't know what to do with
Sure.
it, right?
Put up a
Isn't that
wall.
interesting? Like that's why your husband
Yeah.
either, you know, if you're listening to this, gets so aggressive and loud, or he gets super quiet because he's struggling with, you know, being in the middle, right? How about you, man?
Yeah.
When let's go back in time to like a young married Jordan, 25, 26-year-old. I don't know. I'm guessing that's when you got married. What were you at that time? Were you a secure attacher? Were you anxious? Were you avoidant? Were you disorganized? Where were you as a young man? Would you describe yourself?
I don't know. It's just so funny because sometimes it's hard for me to break myself down. I need someone else to be like, dude, Jordan, wake up. This
Yeah, I
is
wonder
you.
what Danny would say,
Um,
right? Because
I do too. I don't think I was avoidant. I was never avoidant. Um,
I wasn't, I haven't lived with
you
you
know,
ever since we were much younger. But I think for
right.
some reason, which I don't really understand, I think you've always been a very secure attacher. Always.
I was gonna
Yeah.
lean that way. Like I guess that would be considered like a needy
No, no,
person
no,
sometimes.
no.
Like I need
No,
something to
secure is
feel.
healthy. Secure is what you want to be. That means like you've done the work. Like you.
But the problem is if I don't have that feeling of
Mm-hmm.
secure, right? And let's say my relationship, I
Okay.
feel secure. But if that relationship's in
Oh,
turmoil, I feel very disorganized and
but do you
lost.
feel? I think I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think one of the things you might be feeling is you feel some anxiety.
Yeah, and you get anxious because you're not in control or something
Mm-hmm.
feels out of whack. Um, there's uncertainty there, and that's what makes me nervous. So thankfully,
Yeah.
you know, and I think that could boil down to like, are you an
Yeah.
employee or are you an employer? Do you like to go out on your own and not
Yeah.
know where the
Yeah.
money's coming from, but have the chance
Right.
of growing your business? Or like, no, I need something
Yeah.
more secure. I need that paycheck
Yeah.
coming in.
So like,
So that can
yeah, I don't.
be a lot.
We're just playing around with labels right now, which could be healthy or unhelpful. I
Sure.
think that what's what I would guess is that where I'm at now is I'm a very secure attacher, but I still struggle with avoidant tendencies. And you're probably a very secure attacher, but you have struggles with just anxious or ambivalent tendencies. It's probably accurate. Would you say it's accurate?
Yeah. I would say that's pretty good
Yeah, and that's
assumption.
why
Yeah.
everyone listening to this, like that's like a good way of maybe even thinking about yourself. Like, you know, instead of labeling yourself like I'm an avoidant person or I have an anger management, you want to speak highly of yourself, speak into your own identity. And you can say, yeah, like this is where I'm at, but I really struggle in this sometimes. Or yeah, I used to have a more disorganized attachment style, but I'm really, really working on it. And so let me tell you one other little interesting story that came up for you, and then if it's okay, we'll close our episode with the Ask the Family Coach, and I'm going to share 4 amazing little tips. Is that okay? So
I want those tips. Yeah.
my
Good.
relationship with my father has been, you know, just like all of us, has been unique, and there's been seasons of really, really good connection and feeling loved and reconciliation, and then something interesting happened. Is that over COVID, my dad, he stopped really making efforts to be in his grandchildren's life, my kids' lives. And he stopped making efforts to see them. And he had a good reason, because he claimed he was very hyper, sensitive to COVID. He didn't want to get it. So that's why he didn't come and visit.
Mm.
Makes sense, right? On the surface. But what happened?
On the surface, sure. That was a
Yeah,
good excuse
yeah.
for a
I'm
lot of
not
us.
judging. I'm not judging. I'm trying not to
Sure.
judge, but I am. Because I think what happened to me is actually triggered some of these abandonment issues, you know, that I had. It's like, okay, man, you did it to me. I'm fine. I'm over that. Whatever, dude. It happened. But now you're doing it to my kids.
But now, dude, it's my
And
kids.
so it
Right.
just brought up anger and rage inside of me. And I felt like I handled it well. I had a conversation with him and my stepmom, who I love so much. She's a wonderful woman. And I said to them, because here they are, COVID's over. They're like, hey, how's it going? We can't wait to see everyone. We want to come up. And I was like, I'm not going to play house here. I'm not going to pretend. I'm not going to freaking bring these pink elephants into the room like I used to do. And I handled myself, I think, in a very positive way. I had a conversation with them. I remember it pretty vividly. I was in the backyard. It only happened like a year ago. And I said something like this. I don't want to get into it. I said, look, guys, I'm glad you're coming up to visit. Love to have you. Love you guys. Miss you. But we haven't seen you for like 3 years. And like the kids are all grown now. Like they're growing up. They don't really, it's not the same. And I don't feel like everything's the same. Like, so when you come up, I just don't want to pretend like everything's good. Like we're not good. Like it kind of brought up memories for me and what happened in my childhood and not getting phone calls. And then you call me up and say, hey, you're going to come up and visit, or how's it going? And it's just, this is the paraphrase version of a very painful conversation. Sure. And I said, look, we're going to have to, kind of rebuild the relationship together here, because it's kind of affected me that we haven't really seen you for this many years. I shared that with him.
I mean, I would love to hear their feedback, but the real big question I have for you is, if someone is reaching out and saying, hey, I want to see you, COVID's over, I want to be there for you, and now you come to them and say, I'm going to let you, but it's not okay. How are they supposed to make it okay? Do they keep trying to? Is there something that you gave them in guidance saying, I need this to feel better?
I did. And I didn't really like their response fully. I liked my stepmom's response, but I didn't really like his response. But,
were you looking for an apology? Do you just, do you want them to be trying harder?
I don't know. But one thing, I don't know exactly if I had one thing in mind, but let's just end this on a positive note. They accepted that it was going to take some time to rebuild the connection and the trust. And we had a plan to have positive visits to get that, to work on that together as a team. And they were all for that. So we had a plan. But I'm just not going to pretend like, sweep this under the rug like I did for many, many years, all my childhood, right? I'm not going to just pretend and people please this thing or avoid it away. I wanted to address it.
Last question I have for you is, if they continue this over the next, let's say, 3 years, will you move past it and forgive them, or will
I have already forgiven them? There? And just like we love to say, we got to parent the child we have, not the child we want. We've got to love the parents we have, not the parents we want, because I want to honor my parent. I want to honor my mother and father. That doesn't mean I need to, make everything their way, but there is a way. And I'm stepping into that tension every day with all of our parents and step parents and in-laws and all that. And I hope you all do the same.
That's good. We can feel the struggle that it brings to you. And a lot of us probably have a similar topic. So it's good that you shared that. Thank you. I know that was tough.
All right.
Let's get to Ask the Family Coach. All right. And give us some advice. So you got 4 tips. I got 4 tips, and we're just going to, and we could actually make a whole podcast about these things. But the good news is that these tips should sound very familiar to you if you're a regular listener. And the more you listen to this podcast, or if you want to join me and go deeper in my VIP membership, I can just help you go and grow so quickly and help you make major changes in your parenting, to break cycles with your kid, to get your kid's behavior to change, or to help you with these 4 points. Point number 1, here it is. How do we grow? How do we heal? How do we not let the negative past become the negative present? Here's 4 tips. You ready? Number 1, become great at taking timeouts and taking personal responsibility. Common topic we talk about.
Yes, kind of good news. Ourselves. Like, this isn't like high level, like psychology experts to take timeouts. Take timeouts and take personal responsibility means, talk to yourself. Like, instead of reacting, take a timeout.
And maybe think about why you're acting like that. Maybe there's something that traumatized you from when you were a kid. And you're like, man, I'm snapping right now because of what this is bringing up.
Let me take echo what you just said. You just said point number 2. On your timeout, excel at mindfulness and true self-talk. Like there. Hey, what is this bringing up for me? Why am I so enraged by this? Why am I so pissed? I did that. I have modeled that. Why am I so pissed off that my dad and my stepmom have not seen their grandkids in 3 years? What is going on inside of me that I'm enraged at these people that have a valid reason for not doing in-person visits? You know what I mean? Why am I so pissed off at these old timers? Well, it's because it triggered that in me. Abandonment issues, unwanted feelings.
Which ultimately, you did take that time out. You thought about that and you said, I
And
need
I
to
talked to
talk
my
to them
wife
about
about it too.
this.
I kind
So
of
that was good.
flushed it out. I frosted it out. Flushed. I
Flushed.
flushed it out.
Flushed.
Number
Flushed.
three
Toilet.
is very
Uh-huh.
good. Okay, very good. Like going back to, I wish that, my buddy, when we were in the arcade at the mini golf, I wish he had done these things. Take a time
Yeah.
out. Maybe said, hey, honey, I got to use the restroom real quick. And just, he could have walked to the bathroom and like, just been like, what happened inside of me
Sure.
right now? I almost freaking yelled at my kids at the top of my lungs in a freaking arcade. I mean, it was weird what he did. It was weird. And like,
Right.
it was not appropriate. And like, he does this, he does this stuff sometimes. It's like, what is going on inside of you, buddy? All right. Number 3, when you are
Something's
calm and
snapping.
regulated, right? So you've percolated, you've calmed yourself down. You're taking a 5-minute break, a 20-minute break. When you are calm and regulated,
Yeah.
open up and speak gently and truthfully to the people who love you. You like
Good.
that? This isn't rocket science, is it?
Be vulnerable. That's hard. No, but it's hard. No one wants to do that. Just move past it.
Yeah, but that's why we get married, right? That's why we have best friends.
Yeah. Well, that's why we
We go deep.
we go deep.
And number 4 is accept and choose love. Accept your circumstances. Accept that these things happened. Accept that this is actually happening to you. Yeah, the past is affecting the present, and that's okay. But choose love. Choose love. Yeah, it's okay to say no to your kids. Set boundaries with your kids. Don't people please. You don't have to yell, but there's ways of doing all that with love, right? Those are my 4 tips. Hope you liked them.
Yeah. Those are great tips.
Thanks, man. Thanks.
We got it. It's like, you ever see the movie Trolls? The little
I
kid
like
movie
Trolls.
out there, the
I like
animation,
Trolls.
Anna
Yeah.
Kendrick,
Yeah.
Justin. Yeah, it's good. They got a little watch. It's got a little
Yeah.
beeper on it, tells them when they need
Oh,
a
that's
hug. We almost need like a little thing that just says some of these tips, just to remind us of what to do when we get heated, because we can tend to forget,
dude.
right?
Yeah.
It's like, bing, take a time out. You're like, oh yeah, I kind of do need time out right now. I know that usually this time of the day, 4 or 5 o'clock, kids got off the bus to run around the house, driving me crazy. I'm doing dinner. I got to get the laundry done, and I'm about to scream my head off. I need to have this little ding that says, hey, take a time out.
I'm thankful. My attitude of gratitude is actually for this podcast, because we only have this podcast is because people listen to it. We only have sponsors because of people listen to it. We only have this podcast because of you, Jordan. I wouldn't want to do this with anyone else. And so I'm thankful for you and for this podcast, because it's like therapy for me, just talking and sharing and teaching and being vulnerable. Like, I feel better now than I did an hour ago. So thank you, listeners. And thank you, Jordan.
Thank you. I'll send you my bill, my hourly rate here a little bit later, just so you know. And I'm thankful for all those who have the strength to be vulnerable, because it is so hard. And you were vulnerable today, Sean. That was great. We could hear the memories coming through your voice, and we appreciate it, because we all learned a little bit of something, and we all are now that much more open to becoming vulnerable ourselves watching you do that. So go out there, be vulnerable to the world, and let's change it.
Change the world through love, everybody.